Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Kate Levinson. And I guess we could call you Dr. Kate. She's PhD, licensed MFT. What does that mean, MFT?
Marriage Family Therapist.
Marriage Family Therapist. She's the author of Emotional Currency. This is her book. A Woman's Guide to Building a Healthy Relationship with Money. So we're going to be talking a little bit around that subject of her book. It's published by 10 Speed Press, Random House. I imagine you could get it on Amazon.com.
Yes.
And
independent bookstores.
And independent bookstores. And you have your own bookstore, is that right? Yes. Okay. And anyway, so her book and the emotional currency workshops that she leads offer exercises and practices that uncover the generations of money beliefs and habits we've unwittingly inherited and provides us with alternative understandings. The exploration of the psychological and symbolic nature of money provides a powerful and intimate window into ourselves, as well as opening up new possibilities inside of our relationships. In her private practice in San Rafael, Dr. Levinson consults with individuals, parents, and adult children and couples on a range of issues with a specialty of money dilemmas. She's on the supervising faculty of the Psychotherapy Institute and also supervised graduate students at JFK University. Along with her husband, she owns and operates Point Reyes Books, a community-serving bookstore in West Marin. And you'll have some contact information for her at the end of the show. Kate, thanks so much for coming to San Jose to join me today.
Thanks for inviting me, Michael.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Well, let's get into this thing. Emotional currency. Wow, what an interesting subject. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it and why it's important?
Well, it's a really simple concept. It just means that we use money to express ourselves emotionally, and that we have emotional reactions to money. And from there it gets complex, because each of us has our own idiosyncratic relationship, psychological relationship to money, and it comes from a variety of sources. And it's something that we're generally unaware of. So it's something that mostly we haven't explored because we think we're supposed to not have feelings about money.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the field of psychology teaches us about money?
Well, it doesn't say much about money.
Oh, well, how helpful.
It has for over a century been interested in money in terms of our shopping behavior, what motivates us to shop, what motivates us to buy things.
The things that the companies are interested in.
That's right.
What's behind what customers do?
Yes. We were very involved in advertising. At the onset of advertising, we, meaning the field of psychology, was very involved in advertising. But in all of my training and all my own personal therapy, money was never a topic of interest. There's a little bit about fee setting, of course, about how to deal with clients in terms of fee setting, but there was nothing that said money is something that we have issues about, where money is something that's important in our psychological makeup. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it never occurred to me that something was missing until some issues arose in my own life. And then I thought, wait a second, all my therapy, all my analysis, all my training, money was never talked about, yet it was really central to my experience growing up.
Okay. So maybe you can tell us a little more about how you came to be interested in the psychological aspects of money.
Well, I guess that is related. I had an experience after we sold our house in Oakland many years ago, when the real estate market was climbing exponentially, and I felt concerned, even though I'd chosen to sell the house, I wanted to sell the house, I felt concerned that we never could get back into the market. And I had this experience, a felt experience of being a bag lady. As I walked through the neighborhood where we were renting a place, it was clear to me that this would not happen. You know, I had a roof over my head. I had food on my plate. I had plenty, but I had this experience of imagining that I was or would be a bag lady, and that wouldn't go away. So I did what therapists generally do. I went back to therapy to see what is this, and what I discovered was that underneath my relationship to money, I had a great deal of anxiety. That money was actually about survival and life and death for me. That I experienced that when it came to making decisions about money. But again, it was out of my awareness. I hadn't realized it. And it brought up a whole new way of looking at money, one that was very antithetical to how my father taught me to deal with money, which was my father was an accountant by training.
Okay.
And what accountants are really good at, the bottom line and the facts and figures of money,
Yes.
Which is really important. I in no way want to suggest that our rational relationship to money isn't important. But I also, in my family, there was this huge emotional reaction to money, which had to do with my half-sister and a drug addiction and my parents' different backgrounds with money. And that material I had never explored that material. I knew about the pain of some of my family relationships, but I hadn't looked at it through the lens of money. And when I did, I learned so much about myself and about my family.
Fascinating. Okay, well, what influences our psychological and emotional relationship with money?
So family is...
It's a big deal.
Yes. Very, very, at the core is family. What our parents, how our parents felt about what they had and what they had earned, in addition to the actual experience, the actual financial circumstances. So our family, interactions with our family, relationships with our family, and then the actual conditions of our family. We inherit a lot of that from our grandparents and great-grandparents. I feel that my grandfather, who I never knew, influences my relationship to money. Through my dad, he influenced it.
Sure.
The community we grow up in, our peers, affect our relationship to money. Our religion, our gender, our ethnicity, all the places that they're messages to us about how we should be about money, or lessons that are taught to us about money.
So that reminds me a little bit. I'm trying to remember the name of the fellow, but basically he's the guy that put together the Focus in the Family program. And of course, he's talking about family issues, but his point was, he says, we catch our values, we catch so much from our parents. He says it's not necessarily spoken.
Yes.
But it just happens and that's why it's important for parents to be present with their children. If they're not there, they can't catch your values.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, anyways,
And that's really true with money, because often what we say we believe about money, or what we value about money, is there's a discrepancy between that and what we actually do. So our kids catch what we do much more than what we say.
Yes. Well, there's good old Zig Ziglar. Anyway, his mother had what he called sentence sermons. He says, your children more attention pay to what you do than what you say.
Yeah.
So, so that's right on the point.
And then lastly, what's really important in psychology that should probably go first is our own psychological makeup. How we feel about ourselves and how we move through the world influences greatly how we manage our money and deal with money.
Okay. So how do our emotions affect whether we feel we have enough or not enough.
So you deal with this all the time, I'm sure, right?
Well, I mean, I have my own family, so we have our own issues.
Right. And then you deal with it with clients.
Yeah.
You know, that what feels like enough to one person is not enough to another person. It's not about the dollars and cents. It's not about how much. At least I should say it's not directly about how much we have. And so issues of self-worth and whether we feel deprived about other things in our lives, or if we feel deprived emotionally. We use money to compensate a lot for different losses. We use money to block pain. We use money to distract ourselves. We use money to motivate ourselves. So all of those things, I think, contribute, and other things as well, contribute to whether or not when we look at what we have, we feel that the glass is half full or the glass is half empty.
Yeah. So I go to various meetings, seminars, whatever, an awful lot related to building businesses and so on. And they point out that if you had a room full of billionaires and you said, how many people here feel like, you could use some more money? You get an awful lot of hands going up in the room, even though they got plenty, So anyway, and the other thing, I guess it's Tony Robbins that has said, one of the reasons for charitable giving is because you need to convey to your subconscious that I have enough.
Oh, that's interesting.
I have enough to give.
That's a really good reason to give. Another good reason to give.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what we feel, that I think that's classic, right? That we feel if we get X amount of dollars, that then we'll feel secure, we'll feel successful, or we'll feel like it's enough of whatever money means to us, because it carries such different meanings for each of us. And then we get there and we don't have that feeling, so then we want more.
Right. And the problem is it's not the money that can give it to you. It's other things that we need to look for. Okay. Well, how do we uncover some of these unconscious money beliefs?
So we look at money like we deal with other issues in our lives. Say we have anger issues at work, or we have problem setting limits at home, or we have issues in a relationship, or whatever, we're overly critical about ourselves. We look at our relationship with money the same way. We look at how we're dealing with money with curiosity. We try to let go of the judgments and the self-criticisms about how we're dealing with it. And we look at what it feels like to hand somebody a $5 bill at the grocery store, or maybe a $20 bill at the grocery store. We look at what it feels like when a big bill comes in. We look at what we feel like when we have a decision to make about money. One woman in my workshop, I lead workshops for women and for couples on money, and one woman once said that she noticed that she was gritting her teeth, holding her jaw tight when she was writing a check, just at like at the drugstore. So we look for those small cues to tell us about how we feel about money. We become curious and open to seeing, and that's probably the biggest step there is to looking at the unconscious. And then over time we can see some patterns. The patterns are revealed. We might have dreams about money. We might have noticed how that we really have a strong reaction when someone overcharges us at a store, or we have a big unexpected repair on our car. There are endless numbers of opportunities to look at our relationship to money, and I think that the openness, the acknowledgement that we have feelings about money, and that there is value in looking at those feelings, instead of what most of us have learned to do is to push those feelings away, that they're dangerous, right, to our money management. And if we can open to those, then we start we start learning things about ourselves that we don't learn any other way. It's really a fascinating process.
So it goes back to that old Greek, philosophy thing. I guess they had it. I guess it's the Oracle of Delphi or something.
Yes.
Know yourself.
Exactly.
And it also comes back, I guess, the Eastern thing a little bit that a lot of people are into is mindfulness. So in other words, sort of stepping back and sort of observing yourself and thinking about, well, what did I do that for?
Yeah.
Was that really appropriate?
Right. But like looking at it with curiosity, right? Because it all is appropriate when you figure out where it comes from. And especially with money, we go in one direction one moment and we go in another direction the other moment. So if we're just looking at from our rational mind, it's going to look like we were crazy or, oh my God, why did we do that, right?
Yeah.
But if we're looking with more openness emotionally, then everything's of equal value, and it's not about judgment. It's really about understanding and seeing that money's speaking to us, right? Money's telling us things, and that it actually money is an inside job, even though it feels so much like it's coming from the outside always. It's actually also coming from inside of us. Our relationship to money determines so much about how we react to things, and becoming curious about that, recognizing that will have value in terms of our financial life.
Okay. So how can we heal some of our painful feelings about money?
So I think it's important to do the grief work and the healing work around recognizing that we have traumas. There's a story, my book is actually a workbook it's a women's guide to building a healthy relationship to money, but men who get past the subtitles seem to appreciate the book.
Okay.
So it's full of stories and it's full of questions, exploring money from emotion, from psychology. And there's a little story in here about a woman who really wanted a harmonica for one of her birthdays. And she kept asking and asking and asking, and then her brother ended up getting that harmonica, that very same harmonica, for his birthday. And that little story, she talks about how that little story influenced her perception of what she was deserving of or what she could get in the world. And a lot of us have these pivotal stories that sometimes they're really dramatic. In my case, my family stories around money are really dramatic, but sometimes they're really small little snippets that would seem insignificant, but they've left a long-lasting impact. So I can't remember the question exactly, but I think stories is one way.
Well, we're talking about healing painful feelings about money.
Yes. So as a therapist, I've come to really believe that the healing that we heal ourselves, our psyches know how to heal ourselves. So when we have the right ingredients, meaning when we see the situation and we look at it with curiosity and we look at it with compassion, that often we can heal ourselves. I mean, sometimes we have to go to therapy, or sometimes we have to talk to a counselor or a spiritual person, or all the people who help us coach. But often, once we look at it and look at it in depth, our psyches know how to heal these things. So we can see that, for instance, this story about the harmonica, she can see that little girl, needs to be held, or needs to be given the harmonica, or given something special, or just reliving the story from the perspective of the current time. She's able to heal that, understand why her parents did that, not have it be an open sore in her life. So I think that a large part of healing is often listening to ourselves and seeing what's really true. And sometimes around money, it can seem like, oh, get over it. It was just a harmonica. They gave you a car. They gave you money towards your college or whatever. But those little wounds can be significant, even if they seem like they're about something that's really insignificant.
I see. Okay. So most people think that the marriage of emotion and money management are a dangerous mix. What do you think about that?
So I kind of alluded to that, that the I think it's shifting, but I think the science of money has the economics and the financial world was really dominant for a very long time, and that it didn't value emotion. I think we're coming to see that that kind of separation is it doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve even the financial institutions, so or industry, so financial services industry. So we're appreciating that we have, we have a right brain and a left brain. We have our emotions are actually very influential, and we can't talk ourselves out of them. We can't bypass them with facts and figures or science. And we can come up with really good budgets with a financial advisor, but sticking with the budget requires that our emotions are also aligned. It requires that we do the emotional work. And so I think rather than seeing it as a dangerous marriage, I think it's actually a really important marriage and a valuable marriage to having a more whole relationship to money, one where our actions and decisions actually support us, and one where we can include other values other than just the bottom line. The bottom line is important, but there are all sorts of other ways that that other kinds of wealth, we could say, other aspects of our lives that are included in a wealthy life.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of thoughts that come to me related to this. One is, first of all, I think some of it has to do with the history of our country, that the puritanical influence, from the very early part, it was a very strong influence on our culture, and so we sort of disregarded the emotional side of ourselves. But in the process, in a sense, we were actually emasculating ourselves.
Yes.
And so, like you said, now I think we see that there's a more holistic approach. Not only that, but we really need to understand that our actions are founded, they are based on our emotional side. So that's why when we talk about motivation and so forth, I mean, in a sense, we have to get down to the emotional side, and that's what's going to result in hopefully the better actions. So anyway, so that's just a couple of thoughts related to that. Okay, well, let's move on a little bit. We've got a whole 5 minutes left here. Why is there a taboo against talking about money, and how does it impact our relationship with money? That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good question. Kind of leaves me speechless. The second part's easy. The first part, why, I'm not sure. It's cultural. It's not true in all cultures. I think in our culture, it probably relates back to the puritanical origins.
Again,
and also that money carries so much importance. I mean, it carries so much different meaning in our culture. So it's not just how successful you've been, it's what your self-worth is, where you are in the hierarchy of social class, where you live, where you go on vacation. I mean, just whether you have health care or not. Well, not so much anymore, but the quality of the health care, it permeates so much that when we go to talk about it, we're up against the taboo, but we're also up against revealing too much about ourselves.
So it's almost like sex. Okay, so sex and money are two of the most emotionally charged things in our lives.
Exactly.
And so that's why, because they're so emotionally charged, that's why it's so difficult for us to talk about
Yes.
them.
And money is very powerful, right? We know it's a powerful force.
Yeah.
So, and when you're up against a taboo, there's always shame involved. So there's shame about breaking the taboo if we should bring up money. There's also the shame that comes from feeling judged. We judge other people for how much they seem to have, and we feel judged for how much we appear to have. And we can feel judged for having too much, and we can feel judged for having too little.
Yeah.
So we have to tolerate some shame in order to be able to talk about it. And what I found, which was really interesting for me to realize, was that taboo is most impactful on women because we talk so much to our friends about everything else, right?
It's the women who are a little more emotionally open, who share, and are more verbal in general. So,
yes.
So this is true.
It's a primary way we learn, and then we don't, in addition to all the other ways we've been kept away from money, we don't get to talk to one another about it.
Okay. Kate, I want to thank you so much for coming to San Jose today to share with us a little bit about what you've learned. And folks, again, I hope you'll want to get a copy of Kate's book on emotional currency and see a little bit about what she's shared there. And anyway, so thank you again.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Okay. And folks, I hope that we've given you some things to talk about today. We'll see you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.